pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up on the agenda tonight is the approval of the agenda. Council members, we have the agenda in front of us with no changes. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the agenda is adopted. Next up, we have the approval of minutes, starting with the workshop for May 9th, 2023. Council members, any changes or corrections?
Sorry.
Siri is always listening. If there's no changes, I'll look for a motion.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the minutes are adopted. Next up, we have minutes from the regular meeting on May 9th. Council members, any corrections? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion?
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Final conversation? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And those minutes are approved as well. Next up, we have a public hearing for Oakdale Commons. Mr. Getzloff, welcome. You're going to walk us through this?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the action before you, there is a public hearing, and I can give a brief background before Council opens up that hearing. It is to adopt a housing program for senior multifamily rental housing development. So the housing program is specific to the MWF senior housing proposal, and that copy is in front of Council here tonight. It also authorizes the issuance of Conduit bonds for the multifamily housing project and the execution of related documents by the mayor and city administrator. So the background on this is the proposal by MWF Properties for the 168-unit senior apartment building at 1135 Hadley Avenue. This is basically just behind the Waters and the Hy-Vee project. The background, the incomes would be capped at 60% of area median income, and then there would be at least one person age 55 years or older needs to be occupy the building. That's how complies with state statute for senior housing. So the history on this is back in December 13th, City Council adopted Resolution 2022-138, which did approve the issuance of the Conduit revenue bonds to finance the acquisition, construction of the project to be known as Oakdale Commons. The Conduit bond is a process which the city issues bonds on behalf of a private developer. The final steps in the process include holding a public hearing and adopting this resolution, approving the housing plan, and then also approving the project, the program, and authorizing the issuance of the Conduit debt. The maximum amount of that Conduit debt is $27,500,000 to be authorized. Right now, the borrower, the applicant, is looking at $25,160,000, but that final number could change as we get closer to a closing date. A couple other things to note. The borrower is obligated to report to the city on its financials each year and its income and resident log, but most of that compliance is handled by the lenders and the tax credit investors, who are really on the hook for any defaults or things. The city really isn't at risk as part of the Conduit bond debt structure. So that's really that's the background. I'm happy to answer any questions prior to the public hearing. And I'll note that Jenny Bolton, the city's bond counsel with Kenny and Graven, who has done many of these Conduit debt, has done many of these, is also here tonight.
Great. Council members, any questions for Mr. Getzloff or our bond counsel? I have one regarding the state ceiling. I'm not sure who that should go to. You? or the amount
Jenny's
of.
coming on up, so.
Perfect, Jenny, thank you. So I see in the terms of the program that the city of Oakdale has an annual volume cap of 25,480,000. I think it's just 480. Will the bonds issued for this project go against our annual cap for last year, since council signed the first resolution in December of last year, or does that count towards 2023?
No, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, it is a cycle of applications. So the resolution that was adopted in December was necessary in order to make an application in January. So that is part of the 2023 annual limitation. That limit is set by federal law. It's allocated to each state by population, and then the state law determines how it gets allocated to other projects. So this is part of the 2023 limitation.
Got it. And the reason I asked was I just want to make sure my council colleagues are aware, like this will use up our conduit bond capacity essentially for the rest of the year, correct? Or you're shaking your head, oh boy.
Well, just to be clear, each application is project-specific. So if there were another project to come forward in Oakdale, you would make an application for an additional authority to issue bonds for that. And whether or not you had the ability to do it would depend on what volume cap is available of the remaining balance at the state level. There is a next round that's coming up at the beginning of July. So if there were a project, you could apply for that, and it would just depend on capacity.
Got it. So the ceiling is really dependent on the state's total pool and
Right.
what's remaining. Got it. Okay, thank you. As Mr. Gitzloff said, we are required to host a public hearing. So at this time, I'll go ahead and open the public hearing to comments from the audience. During the public hearing, we invite members of the public to step to the podium and speak to this housing program. The rules of the House are simple. You know, we treat everybody with respect. So even if we don't agree on what's being said, the golden rule always applies. So at this time, I'd like to welcome anybody who would like to speak on the housing program for this specific senior multifamily project to step on up. Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back up to the council for comment. Council members, any questions or anything or comments?
No.
All right, I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to waive reading and adopt Resolution 2023-54, adopting a housing program for a senior multifamily rental housing development, approving the project and the program, and authorizing the issuance of Conduit multifamily housing revenue obligations and the execution of related documents by the mayor and city administrator.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And that resolution is adopted. Next up on our agenda is open forum. This is an opportunity for members of the public to step on up and share whatever's on your mind with the city council. But before we do that, we have a proclamation recognizing Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So, whereas Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI Heritage Month originated as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week in 1987 and was expanded to a month-long celebration in 1990. Since its renaming in 2009, the month of May is observed as AAPI Heritage Month. And whereas this month is a time to honor, commemorate, and celebrate the innumerable contributions and accomplishments made by members of the AAPI communities in our city, in our state, and our country. And whereas this month is also a time to learn about the history and rich diversity of AAPI communities, which encompasses individuals of East Asian, South Asian, Southeast Asian, Malaysian, Micronesian, and Polynesian Pacific Islander descent. And whereas during this month, we must also shed light on the systemic inequalities that adversely affect our AAPI communities, such as anti-AAPI racial violence and discrimination, which became more apparent throughout the pandemic. And whereas we will continue to foster intentional connections with our local AAPI communities and organizations through dialogue, education, and advocacy. And whereas we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month to ensure that the cultures, histories, and stories of this community are seen and heard. Therefore, I, Kevin Zabel, Mayor of Oakdale, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I believe we have some students from Tartan High School here to accept the proclamation and join us in a photo. So if you would join us up front.
All right, count of three. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have some lapel pins here for you for coming on out.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you so much. Nice meeting you also.
On the scalpel, there's usually a left hand.
Is it really? It's got shape with it left hand. All right. As I said before, we do have open forum, so if there is anybody else in the audience that would like to share anything on their mind, please feel free to step forward. We just ask that you state your name and address for the record and share what is ever on your mind. Seeing none, we're going to keep going on to consensus motions. Council members, tonight we have A through E. Are there any of those that council members would like to pull for individual consideration? Seeing none, I'll look for motion.
I'll make a motion to approve consensus motions A through E as presented.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And those are adopted. Next up, we have a check-in opportunity with our advisory boards and commissions. First one that met was the Environmental Management Commission. I couldn't be there, unfortunately, but on their agenda, they checked in on the bike and pedestrian plan, which is, I believe, nearing completion finally, so we are very excited to have that. They also worked on the 2023 Washington County Recycling Grant. This is an annual thing that we've done for a while now, but it's funding from Washington County to enhance recycling endeavors we have here in the city. So that group is always very busy, so we appreciate their work on those items. It looks like Parks and Rec was supposed to meet, but it was canceled, so no update from them. So just EMC met. Award of bid. We have an award of bid on City Project 2023-05, the Willowbrook Trails, as well as amending the city budget. Welcome.
For our first time, I think, at the podium, huh?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yeah, so my first item before this council, and it's an honor. We received 7 bids for our Willowbrook Trail project. Thankfully, the project scope had been reduced through development. So we're proposing a budget amendment. So for the project, it's trails in the open space in Willowbrook, so north of the forefront property and then just south of 40th Street that just got paved this week. The trails are through the open space. It's a little under half a mile of new trails. Originally, it was going to be 10 feet wide, but council took action to reduce the width to 8 feet. The low bid was $149,779. The low bid was from Hobbs Excavating. They're a contractor out of Elk River. Reviewed the bids with our consulting engineer, which is Alliant Engineering on this project, and they also recommended that we award. Originally, this project was budgeted for $385,000 in the 2023 capital improvement plan. Thankfully, with the reduced scope and the reduced width of the trail, the public expense was brought down considerably. With the previously approved $42,700 design and construction management fee, it brings the total estimated cost of the project to $221,350. That does include a 15% contingency that we hope we don't end up needing throughout the project. So what you have before you is a resolution, both awarding the bid, or awarding the project to the low bidder Hobbs, and also amending the 2023 budget. So if there's any questions or conversation, that's what I'm here for.
Great. Council members, any questions?
Just for the sake of the public, when would these trails be projected to be completed?
Yep, this summer.
This summer. Great.
I have one question. I feel bad asking the new guy this, but have we used Hobbs Excavating before? I don't recognize that name.
They're a smaller outfit. I haven't worked with them before, and I'd have to look to see if Oakdale has. But that is why we did a little digging and to get comfortable with the bid. It was a fairly tight grouping of bids. They were a little bit lower, but we think that it's a nice tight set of construction plans. So there shouldn't be any problems.
Pretty straightforward. Okay. Other questions? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I would like to move to waive reading and adopt resolution 2023-55, awarding the bid for city project P 2023-05, Willowbrook Trails to Hobbs Excavating Incorporated in the amount of $149,779,100 and amending the 2023 budget, as well as authorizing the mayor and city administrator to sign and execute the contract with Hobbs Excavating.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And that bid is awarded. Thank you.
Thank you.
Staff reports. First up is community development.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have some graphics in case we need them that we're just getting queued up here. So the item before us is the approval of a temporary property use agreement with Norhart Construction related to city-owned property on Outlet A of Helmo Station Addition. So, is that queued up? One more over. There we go. So I just want to put a graphic up to kind of show you a little bit better where this is. So if you look on the screen, the large building footprint there, that's the Norhart apartment building. And then just to the north of that, this is the outlet we're talking about. And one of the things that's, you know, what's triggering this is really a zero lot line development. So they're building pretty close up to that lot line on the north side. In order to build that retaining wall, they need access into our outlot. They also were originally, as part of the construction plans, going to be basically redredging out that outlot, enlarging it to take additional water from the surrounding roadways as well, and restoring the site. So they were already going to do that. One of the difficulties is most times with development, the outlots are getting dedicated as part of it. In this case, the outlot was already there. It already exists. It's city property. So in order for them to use that and make sure it's in compliance, that's where this lease of, or not lease, but a temporary use of city-owned property agreement was chosen as the path to make sure that bring them into compliance and make sure the city is protected as part of that process. In comparison, this proposal to policy MIS 022 demonstrated public benefit. The pond is going to be enlarged to accommodate stormwater from the development and surrounding streets, and will improve both water quality and aesthetic appeal. The site is the only reasonable use. They do need to get in there to be able to build this retaining wall for the adjacent parcel. And the length of temporary use generally does not exceed 2 years. So we've structured this agreement to go towards their end construction date, which is May 1st, 2024. There are a few conditions within the overall agreement, and those are summarized in the packet, and I'll highlight a few of those. We want to make sure that the property isn't utilized for any storage of hazardous materials or for storage of equipment that, other than what's required for the retaining walls, stormwater filtration, or the north exterior of the apartment building. Contractor's also going to be responsible for any erosion control, mowing, snow removal, security litter pickup during that period. And then again, the contractor is going to agree to restore the property to its original conditions, plus the modifications that are that were already approved as part of their construction plans for the overall project. When this came before council before, there was less clarity about the additional condition that was to, if there's some additional enhancements in exchange for basically giving up ownership interest in this property for a year, that the developer would be willing to provide to further enhance the public benefit of this agreement. And we went back and talked with the contractor to see if we could come up with, like, you know, some of the things that they might be able to do with landscaping and street furnishing. And, you know, with the timing of all this, we weren't able to lock in on something, but we did come with a monetary, basically a monetary agreement in exchange for that, which would be that the contractor would contribute $7,500 to the city, which would be set aside in a fund for future use by the city to purchase and install additional plantings, site amenities, street furnishings to further improve environmental quality and aesthetics of Helmo Station area consistent with the Helmo Station PUD. So basically, we'll have another contribution of a fund. That fund will be set aside, and then as Helmo Station develops, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to be able to put that funding to work. That's basically the overview. The contractor has agreed to that, and they have signed the agreement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Getzloff. Council, any questions for Andy right off the bat? Nope. Okay. We have two steps here. First, we got to take the proposal from the table since we tabled it at our last meeting. So can I get a motion on that first?
Sure, I can make a motion to take from the table the approval of a temporary property use agreement between Norhart Construction and the City of Oakdale relating to city-owned property on Outlot A of the Helmo Station addition.
There's motions there, second.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And it is taken from the table. So now we have consideration of it in front of us. I'll give one last chance for questions. Anybody? All right, I'll look for a motion.
I can make a motion to waive reading and adopt Resolution 2023-59, approving a temporary property use agreement between Norhart Construction and the City of Oakdale for the construction of a retaining wall and stormwater improvements on city-owned property on Outlot A of the Helmo Station addition, and authorize the mayor and city administrator to sign and execute.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Final comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And it is agreed to. Gonna keep going, Andy?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Luke. Okay, Mayor, council members, the next item on your agenda is to approve the purchase of playground equipment from Landscape Structures and Installation Service from Flagship Recreation in a total amount not to exceed $855,000 through State of Minnesota Cooperative Purchasing Venture Contract for City Project P 2023-04, which is for the Willowbrook Commons Park. This has been a long time coming. There's been a lot of hard work from council, from staff, from engagement with the public to get to the point of putting this order. One of the recent actions was in December 13th. The council did approve the overall budget for the Commons Park at $2,939,000 and approved the inclusion in the capital improvement plan as a project to start in 2023, but complete in 2024, which is relying on how much funding we have available in each year to postpone when we would potentially have to bond for the project. So since that work and since that budget was approved in December, we've gone in and hired a contractor, SRF, to help us with that final design. We've also had an internal process where we solicited proposals from playground vendors, all of them being on the state contract. The staff committee reviewed these based on cost, maintenance, and equipment, as well as play opportunities provided. Committee identified Flagship Recreation, whose vendor is Landscape Structures, as the lowest cost option and the most responsive to the city's requests. We brought them on. Once they were on, in order to obtain broader playground input on the playground design, we did that additional engagement and included the survey with 214 responses, a booth at the farmers market with 18 people there as well. We got input from the Parks and Rec Commission, and we came back to council on April 11th. And at that meeting, we presented the results of that engagement, along with two concepts for playground design and an updated concept for the overall park. So council was supportive of staff's recommendation to pursue the Super Netplex concept because it offers the most accessibility and inclusive features and includes highly rated components from the public engagement that can be accommodated within budget. So there are 2 separate purchase orders required for this. One is for the equipment, that's landscape structure, so that includes the 2 to 5 playground, the 5 to 12 playground, the swing sets, the zip line, the challenge course, and the fitness equipment, and the musical instruments. And then the other package is for the installation of both the poured in place and artificial turf surfacing, and then the equipment from Flagship Recreation. And again, both of these can be purchased on that state contract. Purchasing through a state contract ensures that we're receiving the most competitive pricing. And purchasing at this time, meaning this meeting, is going to allow us to sneak in still at 2023 rates. Any later would push us out to 2024, which we would expect a price increase for the equipment. Securing now also basically locks in the price of a very big component of this park. About a third of the park is then locked in, so there's less cost uncertainty there going forward. As far as the payment structure goes, the payment for equipment would be due upon delivery. Right now, there is a back order for equipment that could take up to 6 months, so we're really looking till December for this equipment to come in beyond any install for this season. So the vendor at no cost, Flagship, who has a warehouse in Lake Elmo, has offered to store that equipment for the city. We're still working out the details about making sure everything's insured, and the city does need to do an inspection of that equipment upon its arrival to be able to authorize the payment. And then the payment for the actual services rendered would be for Flagship would be 30 days after invoicing, so those wouldn't be incurred until early next year. 2 other points to make here. One is that we wanted to bring back the cost for the equipment. It's a very big component, but also reassure council that equipment, along with the other components of the park, still remain within budget. So that $2,939,000 that was set in December, right now the estimated cost of the overall project is $2,869,000. So it's slightly under. That includes the SRF contract reference for both the design and then construction administration out in the field. And it includes the play equipment and surfacing that you're authorizing today. And then it includes all the other park improvements, along with a 10% contingency that we've built in. So today's the playground equipment. Next, we'll be coming back to approve the overall project and the award of bids. I will note that as far as the timing of that award of bids, we want to continue to work with our contractors and talk with vendors about making sure that that's the optimal timing. Our original thought was to get that out in June timeframe and then give a longer period for contractors to bid on it into mid next year. But it might make some sense to just wait on that because people are already full plates and be able to submit bids. So we'll come back with a recommendation on that. So that's really the summary of the walkthrough. I just put the graphics up there for background and certainly could flip through them if there's any specific questions.
Council members, any questions?
No, I'd just make a comment if I could.
Please.
And a lot went into this from the council, a lot went into this from the public, a lot of feedback, and the accessibility that's included here, the different age groups. There's a lot of excitement for this park, so I'm just glad we're to this point.
Yeah, Councilmember Morcom, to your point, the public engagement on this was huge. I think from council's perspective, we didn't quite know what we wanted there. And so when we sent it out to the public to provide feedback on specific amenities, that played a leading role in determining what went into this park. So, for all of the residents and non-residents that participated in the surveys and the public engagement pieces that we put together, thank you. It really did make an impact. All right, council members, we technically have 2 contracts here, so I suppose we could divide it if anybody had a problem with either of them. If not, we could just approve them together. together? All right, I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to waive reading and adopt resolution, hang on, I gotta breathe, 2023-57, approving the issuance of a purchase order by the city administrator for playground equipment from Landscape Structures in a total amount not to exceed $409,000, and for installation services from Flagship Recreation in a total amount not to exceed $446,000 through the State of Minnesota Cooperative Purchasing Venture for City Project P 2023-04 Willowbrook Commons Park.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, that was a mouthful, wasn't it?
So I had to breathe.
Final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that resolution is adopted. Finally, Willowbrook 9th edition. Mr. McClanahan, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, so this is the next phase of Willowbrook. I can't believe we're on the 9th edition already. The location of the site is at the northwest quadrant of Helmo and 40th Street. The site is approximately 35 acres, and the purpose of the request is to plat 29 single-family residential lots. So this phase of Willowbrook features low-density development, so the largest single-family lots that we've seen thus far. There will be 2 new roads created by this development, so Healy Avenue will run north-south, and Healy Lane will be a loop road through this development. Sidewalks are proposed on the east side of Healy Avenue and along Healy Lane as well. Staff finds that this final plat substantially conforms to the approved preliminary plat of Willowbrook, subject to certain conditions found in the resolution. Staff recommends approval of the plat subject to the conditions, and I'll just summarize those conditions found in the resolution. Execution of a development agreement, approval of construction plans by the city engineer, permits and approvals from applicable outside agencies be obtained by the developer, satisfaction of park dedication requirements, including conveyance of an outlot that will be located just south of the residential lots, and that outlot would be conveyed to the city. Compliance with the city attorney's plat opinion and recording instructions. And finally, the developer must accommodate a trail segment on the north and east side of the residential lots connecting Healy Avenue to 40th Street, and that's just to be consistent with the past trail plans that we've seen. The developer's engineer is here in attendance if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Council members, any questions for Luke? I have one.
Yes.
Do we have a Healy Avenue elsewhere in Oakdale?
My understanding, and we discussed this as staff, this might be a first for the city.
Look at that, groundbreaking. Yes. A new name.
How does that get decided, the street name?
Figure out what letters are left.
Yeah, my understanding is that there's a county book, like a county guide from a few decades back, but it's still in use, and that's our naming convention for streets throughout the city.
So they're alphabetical, so if it fits between 2 existing ones, you gotta figure out the right letters that work in there.
Interesting.
Running out of options. Council members, any other questions? I'll look for motion.
Make a motion to waive reading and adopt resolution 2023-56, approving the final plat of Willowbrook 9th edition with conditions included in the attached resolution.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And that plat is approved. Thank you, Luke. Time to check in with our city attorney, Jim Thompson. Good evening, Jim.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, nothing specific to report. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Council members, any questions for the city attorney? Nope. All right, we're gonna turn the other way now. Check in with our city administrator, Christina Volkers.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I have three proposed changes to city policies on the agenda. The first, if we can hold on the first for a second, because that's going to be a little bit of discussion, I think. MIS 007 is the current city policy for posting at city offices and on the electronic message boards. And we have one active electronic board. It's right here at City Hall. You can see the change proposed in front of you. We're suggesting that we clear up some language, and we haven't been utilizing that part of the policy. So the last time this was updated or initiated was 1996. So we wanted to clean up the policy. We're on this kind of roll of trying to clean up, review all policies and clean them up. So you're going to start seeing a little bit more before you. So that one I'm asking for support or changes and then approval. If we could take them one by one, Mr. Mayor?
Yep, I think that is appropriate. Council members, looking at item B under Administrator's Report, any comments or thoughts? All right, I'll look for motion.
I move to approve the proposed changes to City Policy MIS 007, posting at city offices or on electronic message boards.
There's motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, final comments. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Those changes are approved.
Thank you.
Which one do you want to take next?
The next one, let's do the third
Flip a
one.
coin, yeah.
The third one, the C. Repeal City Policy MIS 016. Now, this one we found that we thought it was conflicting. That's why we're proposing that we repeal it. Our city code says we must post agenda and materials 3 days prior to a council meeting. This policy says no less than 24 hours prior for materials, I think was the intent. So we were thinking it was in conflict. City code will always apply versus policy if there's a conflict there. I think the mayor might have another thought on whether we should keep this or not. We're just trying, again, to clean up policies, and we really don't want anything in writing that's conflicting or confusing for staff. So if we have to clarify based on this discussion, we will. So, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, the comment I'll make, so as the original author of this back in, I don't know, 2020, the intent really was, back then we had a number of instances where council wasn't receiving information for consideration until either at the meeting or in our inboxes right before, and there was a bubbling frustration that we weren't being given adequate time to review that information, digest it, ask questions of the city administrator then, previous administration. And so the thought process here was, we needed a line to ensure that we have adequate time for us to review, but also for the public to engage if they wanted to. One of the things the city administrator said, and correct me if I'm wrong here, I think the city code only specifies agendas, not agendas and materials, which was why the policy focused solely on materials. I may be wrong there, but.
So, Mr. Mayor, and City Council, that is probably a point of clarification for the city attorney, because when the code says, let me quote section 2-21, an agenda for each regular city council meeting shall be prepared and filed in the office of the clerk and available to the public no later than 2 days next preceding the regular meeting. Agenda, when it uses the term in code agenda, we think it means agenda and materials. So, but the city attorney can maybe clarify if that's an accurate interpretation or if it really just means agenda, I don't know.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, it might be a moot point. Attorneys love to avoid moot points when we can. Because the next sentence says, agendas together with all other relevant data as determined by the city administrator. I would kind of include that to mean the packet itself, that's the relevant material. So,
No later than 2 days.
yeah, so I think that probably already covers it. But to answer your question, I don't think agenda technically means
Materials.
agenda materials. The agenda is the 3 pages of your agenda packet, but it's not the packet itself. So, but again, I think it's probably covered in the next sentence.
Yeah, the city code then says, as Jim referenced, agendas together with all relevant data as determined by the administrator for the council to consider an item shall be delivered to the council members at their regular place of residence. We do that electronic. We do not send things out to your house, no later than 2 days prior. So it is covered in the city code.
Okay. And, I would just say, I think in the last 3 years, the number of times when we wouldn't have followed that policy is less than one hand. Staff has made tremendous strides in improving the processes in which we get information. Lines of communication with the city administrator and senior staff has greatly improved. So I see less of a reason for the policy, although, near and dear to my heart. So I'm not going to put up too much of a fight if council wants to get rid of it. But the intent is being met, so I can live with it. But
Okay, what say you
my
then?
words.
I know.
Council, I'm good with doing whatever you all want to do.
Yeah, well, and as the administrator and city attorney said, so long as the agenda and all of the information the public would need to feel fully informed on a subject are being presented in advance, and the code dictates, as you said, I'm fine with making the change as well.
I agree.
I'm in agreement to the city administrator's recommendation as well.
All right, let's go for it. I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to repeal city policy MIS-016, posting city council meeting materials.
There's motions there, second.
Second?
Motion second, final.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
Come on, Jim, we were on a roll.
I do want to point out one point of clarification because I might have slightly misstated. The second sentence that talks about other related material talks about having it delivered to the council 2 days in advance, not necessarily posting it on the website. Chris, that's how I read that sentence.
Yeah, I do too. What does that mean? Like literally to their house?
Well, I think Jim's point might be that, my intent of it was to make sure that we have it, but also that the public has it. The current ordinance wouldn't require that the public has it.
But we've never done one without the other.
Yeah, but the ordinance doesn't say that.
Okay.
Maybe we could tweak the ordinance a little.
We absolutely
whole
are
other
working on that.
process.
We are working on that. This whole section is kind of goofy. Like the order of the meeting items is not, was like from 20 years ago. We need to update some of that. So we are working on that.
How do we feel about leaving the policy in place until we make that ordinance change? That way it's covered for the public to have it.
I would feel more comfortable having it covered for the public until we can make a complete change.
That's fine.
What do we think down here?
Well, there's a motion on the table, right?
There is. I didn't hear a second, so if we don't get a second, it would fail due to lack of a second. Is there a second? All right, I don't hear one.
I think I did formally make one, actually.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah, I think-
Sarah, what do we got down there?
He did.
You got it?
Okay.
All right. Okay, so now we're back to conversation on the original motion to repeal. How about time frame? When do you think the ordinance change will be in front of us?
Well, this summer, we have it slated to work on, the whole administrative section, and this section needs to be tweaked a little.
So in the next few
It's very
months.
old, yeah.
Okay, so
Next few months, so-
we'd be hanging on to the policy for a couple more months until we do the ordinance.
I think it's fine if we repeal it, I really do.
Yeah, here nor there. I mean, what do we think, folks?
Right, well, let's put faith in the process, and we as elected officials can identify any issues should they come up between now and when it formally gets addressed.
All right, let's do that. Let's proceed with the repeal if we're all good with that. All right, I got a motion and a second. Final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And it's repealed, I think.
Okay, it was a long way around, but thank you. Okay, third
Way
one,
to go,
Mr. Mayor,
Jim.
City Council. MIS 014, this one, we were recommending some just updates based on the information that's on the website and what other cities do, and it basically talks about prior to speaking at the council meeting, open forum, fill out a name and address, so we have that for the record. It's not really required, it's a best practice, it's not really required, it's just not. And there's been some comments, once I publish this for everybody, that we don't want to have a barrier for inviting people to speak. We want this as open as possible. I am absolutely fine with whatever you want to do. I checked with the city attorney. He said, no, we don't really need their name and address on the records. We don't really need them to fill out a form. Okay, so however you want to handle this is just fine with me, but I would like the policy cleaned up. So tell me what you want for the direction, and then we could fix it maybe, or you could table this.
Unfortunately, I don't have a copy of the changes in front of me.
Here, there you go.
So to the city administrator's point, I was one of those that shared concerns that some of the language in 1.3 was a little too forceful. Things like must request to speak and do it prior to the start of the meeting. Not on board with that. The next change was, state your name and address, adding language that if you're representing a group or organization, you say that as well. Personally, I'm okay with that. I think most people tend to do that anyways. There was also an addition of if the speaker has indicated they would like their comment read by the mayor. I think we do that already, don't we?
If they say, yeah.
Yeah. And that was the only corrections. So personally, we're really looking at the strong language, which I'm not in favor of, and then two other small tweaks that either happen organically or, well, they just happen organically. so I'm not sure they're necessary. I don't know, does anybody else want to see the language?
Yeah, I do. Thanks.
Yeah, and I can echo Mayor, what you said as well. I brought up with the administrator that I don't want to have any barriers in place. I have no problem with a policy, just for clarity, so that if someone does come to speak, it's good for the public to know who's coming and addressing the council, but making sure that it's phrased in such a way that getting that information is optional. It's not a requirement of coming to speak in public forum.
I agree with Andy. I don't think, if we could just eliminate some of it, like the must request. Actually, if you just took out the word must,
That's what I
I
circled.
may have other changes, but council members, how about if we just reject the changes for the purposes of the agenda tonight, and then staff can work on it, and just so we button up the agenda tonight, and then if,
If you could provide me direction so I can come right back to council with the change next time, that would be helpful, so we don't have to go through the workshop process.
personally, I'm fine with the policy as is. You know, I think our rules of conduct already cover what we're going for here, you know? So I don't necessarily see a need to change anything.
I think that part about indicating they would like their comment read by the mayor, that's a good addition.
Yeah, we could formalize that. I guess we've always done it by tradition, you know, but if we want to put it in writing, yeah.
So take
then
out the
just-
word must?
Or maybe just get rid of 1.3 totally.
I would say get
Okay.
rid of 1.3 entirely, filling out a form and.
Okay, and then add that other part.
So, I mean, do we just want to strike 1.3 and keep 2.1 and call it a day?
And we
I'm
could
cool
get
with
it
that.
done.
Are you cool with that?
So striking all of 1.3.
Correct. And keeping 2.1. And then I think there's a technical change on the back, just capitalization of something
Oh,
minor.
okay.
What do you think, Noah?
You know, what is the history back in 2018 when, or was this addressed back in 2018?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
You know, was this an issue that was brought up then at that time?
Where's Lori? She was around.
I don't think it's ever been an issue.
No, I think it might have just been clarification on terms or something, you know, minor changes. You know, for the most part, we don't get a ton of open forum.
Are we okay if someone from another resident, from another city, making comments in our council? Is that?
Yeah, we can't prohibit based on residency. Yeah.
I think based on that, I would be in support of striking all of 1.3 and then leaving 2.1.
I agree.
All right. I'm gonna make come on, Jay.
I just want to point out, the requirement to state their name and address is in 2.1 now.
Yeah.
And you're fine with that. Okay, what 2.1 does, 1.3 did was add the form. So you're taking that out, but leaving 2.1, which still says they should state their name and address. Okay,
Except for 1.3 says prior to the council meeting.
yeah, I know.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion to strike 1.3 from this policy, MIS-014, and leave the changes that was put into 2.1, 2.1, yeah.
And the one on the back. I think there's just a small tweak.
Oh, yep, and then also the change in 2.9.
Chris, does staff have our clear intent?
Completely.
Got it. All right. There's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion a second. Final comments? Please, no. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Good to go.
Thank
Policy
you.
changed.
Thank you.
Woo. Council presentations. Who wants to go first?
I don't have
Oh,
any.
calm down, everybody.
Nothing for me.
Andy, anything?
Nothing for me.
All right, I got a few, so indulge me for a minute. First, a reminder, city offices will be closed on Monday, May 29th in observance of Memorial Day. I don't believe Oakdale has a Memorial Day celebration, but a number of our communities around us do. I know North St. Paul does, I believe Woodbury does as well. So we encourage residents to pop on over there and join one of their celebrations. I've been in North St. Paul's, it's pretty cool. So next up, our Oakdale Spring Photo Contest is open for one more week. So if you have any beautiful spring pictures that you've taken around town, go ahead and submit them by May 31st. Only Oakdale residents are eligible to participate, and you must have taken the photo in Oakdale. For full contest rules, please visit our city website, oakdalemn.gov, and I believe there's some cool prizes associated with the photos that win. Next is a reminder of an upcoming event, one of my favorites here in Oakdale. So any residents looking to add native pollinators to your garden or yard, we encourage you to check out the Oakdale Landscape Revival Native Plant Market and Expo. It's coming up on Saturday, June 3rd from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It will be at the North Fire Station, 5000 Hadley Avenue North, and features local growers offering a wide variety of hardy and native plants. That's where I got my really cool Minnesota cactus. A lot of people don't know we have native cactuses in Minnesota. Summerfest, my goodness, Summerfest is now less than 1 month away. That is hard to believe. So we encourage residents to mark your calendars June 22nd through the 26th for our Cornerstone Community Celebration. There are a ton of events like the Ted Birth Grand Parade, free concerts at the Walton Bandshell, the Nature Preserve 5K, food trucks, fireworks. In fact, I think it's called the Fireworks Extravaganza. We're fancy around here. And more. So new additions to this year's celebration include the Oakdale Chamber incorporating their community picnic and charitable golf tournament into the event. So lots on the schedule, lots of new bands, lots happening. More information, please visit oakdalesummerfest.com. Every summer, the city recognizes eye-catching properties with the Oakdale Acorn Award. We encourage residents to nominate as many properties as you'd like by June 30th. There are 3 categories that you can nominate properties for: the business commercial, public, and residential. More information and to make those nominations, visit our website, oakdalemn.gov. Finally, a little bit of recognition. It is National Public Works Week. Our Public Works Department does a phenomenal job, from snow removal to park maintenance to streets and utilities and everything in between. So on behalf of the City Council, I want to say thank you. Jim, please share our appreciation with your department. They often have a very impossible job, usually during winter, and we appreciate everything that they do. They do a good job at keeping this city in tip-top shape, so thank you. That's it. That's all I got. Should we pay some bills? Whether we want to or not. Claims roster for period of May 10th, 2023 through May 23rd, 2023 in the amount of $935,982.60. Council members, are there any claims you'd like to flag? I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve claims as presented.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Final comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Bills are paid. Motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are adjourned. Thank you and good night. That was a long one. Oof.